Are you accustomed to the image of Jesus with fair skin, blue eyes, and long brown hair? A depiction that has long been iconic in churches and religious art worldwide? How would you feel if I told you this portrayal isn't true? Have you ever wondered what Jesus truly looked like? Could a first-century Middle Eastern man with white skin be an accurate depiction? To uncover the answer, we need to start with what the Bible and history actually tell us. Watch this video to the end, and I promise to bring you fascinating and mysterious insights into Jesus' image. If you find these insights intriguing, please share them with the Christian community. Spread the word, and support me by subscribing, leaving comments, and giving feedback to help me continue developing this channel and creating more videos. Thank you. Now, let's uncover untold clues and see if they can unveil the mystery behind the appearance of one of history's most influential figures. Could the true face of Jesus be vastly different from what we imagine? The mystery of Jesus' true appearance remains a significant unanswered question. Even though we've seen thousands of images of him in paintings, films, and statues worldwide, the Bible does not provide a clear description of Jesus' physical appearance. The Gospels, including Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, do not detail his skin color, eye color, or height. Instead, they focus on his teachings, emphasizing the importance of his spiritual mission over physical traits. However, a passage in Revelation 1 verses 14 to 15 states, "His head and hair were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes like a flame of fire. His feet are described as like bronze refined in a furnace," with this reference to burnished bronze. Some scholars suggest he may have had dark skin, while others argue that this imagery is symbolic rather than literal. So, who first created the image of Jesus? Historically, in the 2nd and 3rd centuries, when Christianity became legally recognized in Rome and began to spread through Mediterranean society, the first portraits of Jesus appeared, yet they were largely symbolic. In early artwork, Jesus was depicted as a young man with no specific ethnic features, primarily as a divine, symbolic figure. But from the 4th century onward, a significant shift occurred. When Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire in 313 under Emperor Constantine, Jesus' image also began to evolve to reflect Roman and later European cultural ideals. During the Renaissance, European artists like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo started portraying Jesus with European features. Da Vinci's The Last Supper and Michelangelo's The Last Judgment etched an image of a majestic, white Jesus into the minds of millions. This portrayal became a symbol of sanctity and nobility, widely embraced within European culture. As European powers expanded their colonies across Africa, the Americas, and Asia, the image of a white Jesus also spread. This portrayal served not only religious purposes but also became a cultural tool to reinforce European authority. Many colonial-era portraits depicted Jesus as white, implying nobility and purity. Thus, in many colonized areas, the image of a white savior was used to reinforce the concept of European superiority and establish the status of the white man. This raises an important question. Was Jesus actually white? History shows that Jesus was born and raised in the Middle East, a region where most people have olive-toned skin, dark hair, and dark eyes. According to archaeological and anthropological research, a Jewish man in Jesus' time was likely robust in build and sun-darkened from a harsh environment. This suggests that he may not resemble the familiar Western image. Therefore, discovering Jesus' true appearance is not only a historical quest, but also an opportunity to examine the cultural and political influences shaping the image of one of history's most important figures. Perhaps Jesus' appearance was never meant to be central. His mission, teachings, and message of love, justice, and sacrifice are what make him an eternal symbol for humanity. With these reflections in mind, let us delve into each aspect to explore the question: should the image of Jesus be adjusted to more accurately reflect his historical origins? The mystery of Jesus' true appearance remains a significant unanswered question. Even though we've seen thousands of images of him in paintings, films, and statues worldwide, the Bible does not provide a clear description of Jesus' physical appearance. The Gospels, including Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, do not detail his skin color, eye color, or height. Instead, they focus on his teachings, emphasizing the importance of his spiritual mission over physical traits. However, a passage in Revelation 1 verses 14 to 15 states, "His head and hair were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes like a flame of fire. His feet are described as like bronze refined in a furnace." With this reference to burnished bronze, some scholars suggest he may have had dark skin, while others argue that this imagery is symbolic rather than literal. So, who first created the image of Jesus? Historically, in the 2nd and 3rd centuries, when Christianity became legally recognized in Rome and began to spread through Mediterranean society, the first portraits of Jesus appeared, yet they were largely symbolic. In early artwork, Jesus was depicted as a young man with no specific ethnic features, primarily as a divine, symbolic figure. But from the 4th century onward, a significant shift occurred. When Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire in 313 under Emperor Constantine, Jesus' image also began to evolve to reflect Roman and later European cultural ideals. During the Renaissance, European artists like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo started portraying Jesus with European features. Da Vinci's The Last Supper and Michelangelo's The Last Judgment etched an image of a majestic, white Jesus into the minds of millions. This portrayal became a symbol of sanctity and nobility, widely embraced within European culture. As European powers expanded their colonies across Africa, the Americas, and Asia, the image of a white Jesus also spread. This portrayal served not only religious purposes but also became a cultural tool to reinforce European authority. Many colonial-era portraits depicted Jesus as white, implying nobility and purity. Thus, in many colonized areas, the image of a white savior was used to reinforce the concept of European superiority and establish the status of the white man. This raises an important question. Was Jesus actually white? History shows that Jesus was born and raised in the Middle East, a region where most people have olive-toned skin, dark hair, and dark eyes. According to archaeological and anthropological research, a Jewish man in Jesus' time was likely robust in build and sun-darkened from a harsh environment. This suggests that he may not resemble the familiar Western image. Therefore, discovering Jesus' true appearance is not only a historical quest, but also an opportunity to examine the cultural and political influences shaping the image of one of history's most important figures. Perhaps Jesus' appearance was never meant to be central. His mission, teachings, and message of love, justice, and sacrifice are what make him an eternal symbol for humanity. With these reflections in mind, let us delve into each aspect to explore the question: should the image of Jesus be adjusted to more accurately reflect his historical origins? A brief look at Europe's colonial history reveals that as European empires expanded their territories through exploration and colonization from the 16th century onward, the image of a white Jesus was carried to distant continents. In Africa, Asia, and the Americas, missionaries used these images to spread the faith, inadvertently creating a standardized racial depiction of Jesus. In many cases, a white Jesus was employed as a tool of power, reinforcing Europe's cultural superiority over the lands they conquered. First, consider how this image became widespread. During the Renaissance, European art began to portray Jesus according to European ideals, particularly in works by artists like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo. Iconic pieces such as The Last Supper and The Last Judgment established a familiar symbol, Jesus with distinctly European features. As European powers expanded into Africa, Asia, and the Americas in the 15th and 16th centuries, Christian missionaries spread this image further. This was not only a matter of religious transmission, but also a cultural message that Jesus, a figure of divine authority, looked like a European. This image's powerful reach lies in the strength of tradition and the deep cultural influence of European Christianity. Despite various historical studies that suggest different descriptions of Jesus, the legacy of Renaissance artists and the impact of the colonial era have made this standard image nearly unshakable in many faith communities. Modern studies in archaeology and anthropology have raised questions about the accuracy of the traditional white depiction of Jesus. Forensic scientists, based on what we know of first-century Jews in the Middle East, suggest that Jesus likely had olive-brown skin, dark curly hair, and features typical of people in that region. Born in Bethlehem and raised in Nazareth, Jesus lived in a dynamic era and region where historical and geographical context shaped both his humanity and his mission. In first-century Middle Eastern territory under Roman rule, Jesus grew up in a society marked by conflict and ethnic diversity. Israel at that time was a crossroads of cultures, influenced by Romans, Greeks, Egyptians, and other Middle Eastern nations. It was a hub where trade routes connected Africa, Asia, and Europe. In this setting, modern research supports the image of Jesus as a Jewish man with dark olive skin, black hair, and dark eyes. Archaeologists and forensic experts have delved into research on what Jesus might have looked like, supporting the hypothesis through biblical texts and physical evidence that he resembled typical first-century Jews. Using forensic techniques, scientists have analyzed the bone structure of ancient Jews found in Galilee, where Jesus spent most of his life. A 2001 study by forensic anthropologist Richard Neve reconstructed the face of a Jewish man from that era, revealing a look quite different from the popular Western depictions of a fair-skinned, brown-haired Jesus. Neve's findings suggest a man with dark skin, a broad face, dark eyes, and short curly hair, features reflecting a Middle Eastern origin. Ethnic diversity in the region was also a significant aspect of Jesus' life. Living in a culturally diverse environment, he encountered many different groups, from Orthodox Jews to Greeks, Romans, and Samaritans, a group considered outsiders at the time. These experiences may have deepened his message of unity and unconditional love. Notably, the Bible recounts Jesus' time in Egypt as a child to escape King Herod's persecution, underscoring a connection to Africa that further highlights the universality of his mission. Archaeological studies also indicate that the region where Jesus lived had a hot, dry climate, which would have influenced the appearance of its inhabitants. Local people adapted to this environment over generations, from darker skin tones for sun protection to wearing long robes for body coverage. These details accentuate an image of Jesus that contrasts with later European portrayals shaped more by Renaissance art than by historical reality. Through forensic insights and cultural context, the image of Jesus as a Middle Eastern man has never been clearer. Combining modern research with historical context, we can envision a Jesus deeply connected to the land and people of his birth, a portrayal that aligns more authentically with his mission. When considering the origins of Jesus, we cannot overlook Africa, a land rich in mystery and diversity, frequently referenced in the Bible, not merely as a distant place, but as one that plays a vital role in the sacred story of Jesus and many other figures. What, then, is Africa's role in the Bible, and why does it hold such significance in Christian history? To answer these questions, we must examine both biblical texts and the cultural context of Jesus' time. Africa appears in the Bible from the very beginning. The book of Genesis mentions rivers surrounding the Garden of Eden, one of which flows through the land of Cush, often considered modern-day Ethiopia. Cush, an ancient name for Ethiopia, was one way that early people referred to Africa. Furthermore, Egypt is a significant part of the biblical narrative. With its great civilization and cultural depth, Egypt served as a refuge for the patriarch Abraham, the seat of power for Joseph, and the place from which Moses led the Israelites out of slavery. In the Bible, Egypt is portrayed as a land of power and mystery, symbolizing both refuge and trial. Africa played a particularly important role in the life of Jesus. After King Herod sought to kill all the male infants in Bethlehem to eliminate the Messiah, Jesus' family fled to Egypt to ensure his safety. According to Matthew 2 verses 13 to 15, an angel instructed Joseph to take his family to Egypt, where Jesus spent his early years. Egypt thus became a place of refuge for Jesus, symbolizing Africa's role as a protector and preserver of the Savior's life. In this context, Egypt represents not only a historical location, but also a symbol of hospitality and a sanctuary for faith. Moreover, Africa is mentioned in connection with other key figures, such as the Ethiopian in Acts 8, an Ethiopian official, traveling home from Jerusalem, met Philip and became one of the first converts through Philip's teaching. This man represents Africans in the Bible and is part of the broader spread of Christianity beyond Israel's borders. This encounter demonstrates Christianity's far-reaching impact and its deep connection with Africa, which from the beginning played an essential role in this religious history. Africa also appears in the story of Simon of Cyrene. According to the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, Simon, a man from Cyrene in North Africa, now Libya, helped Jesus carry the cross on the way to Golgotha. This act was not merely a chance intervention. It held profound symbolic meaning, linking Africa with sacrifice and redemption in Jesus' story. Simon of Cyrene has long been seen by people and scholars alike as a symbol of shared burdens and compassion. Africa is not only represented through individual stories, but is also mentioned throughout the Bible as a land of wealth, resources, and potential. King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, believed by many to be from Ethiopia or Yemen, formed a prosperous alliance. According to the books of Kings and Chronicles, the Queen of Sheba visited Jerusalem with gold, spices, and precious stones to test Solomon's wisdom. This meeting symbolizes harmonious connections between major civilizations, showing that Africa had strong trade and interactions with ancient Israel. In Jesus' time, regions in Africa, especially Egypt, were part of the Roman Empire and were known as cultural and commercial hubs. People from across the Mediterranean, including Israelites and Romans, regularly traveled here, creating a vibrant network of cultural and religious exchange. With more than 50 mentions of African lands in the Bible, from Cush and Egypt to Libya, there's no denying that this continent played an important role in shaping and spreading the Christian faith. Closer look at the Bible reveals that Africa is not merely a temporary setting but a central part of the Christian story, with crucial contributions and memorable figures. Africa was not only a refuge for Jesus, but also a place where faith was tested, protected, and shared. Africa and Christianity have been closely intertwined, forming a spiritual bond that has endured for millennia, highlighting the profound influence and significance of Africa in the Bible, far beyond what we may typically imagine. Throughout history, the image of Jesus has become a powerful cultural and religious symbol. Yet if you open the Bible looking for a description of his appearance, you will find nothing. Why does the Bible remain silent on the appearance of one of humanity's most significant figures? To understand this, we must delve into how the Bible conveys its message, as well as the ancient perspective on image and sanctity. One striking point is that none of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, describe what Jesus looked like. While his words and actions are meticulously recorded, his physical appearance remains a blank. Many scholars believe this is no accident. The Bible wants us to focus on Jesus' teachings and spirit rather than on external attributes. When considering the importance of substance over appearance, the Bible arguably chose substance, highlighting teachings of love and forgiveness over physical features. One of the rare biblical passages cited to speculate on Jesus' appearance is from the Old Testament. In Isaiah 53 verse 2, where the Messiah is vaguely described, he had no beauty or majesty to attract us to him, nothing in his appearance that we should desire him. Many Christians believe this prophecy refers to Jesus, suggesting that he had no striking or attractive features. This passage emphasizes an important point. Jesus' power lay not in his outward beauty, but in his spiritual strength and compassion. This also relates to the Jewish prohibition against creating images of the divine. In the book of Exodus, God commands, "You shall not make for yourself a carved image of anything in heaven above." This principle was strictly observed by the Jewish people. The absence of an image of Jesus may reflect this tradition, aiming to avoid the worship of physical forms and encouraging believers to focus on a spiritual connection rather than appearances. Moreover, compared to other ancient texts, it is not uncommon for important figures in the Bible to lack physical descriptions. Biblical characters are often defined by their actions and moral qualities rather than by their appearance. In a world where information was shared primarily through oral tradition, focusing on the story and its meaning was more important than rendering portraits. Jesus' image was conveyed through his teachings, miracles, and sacrifice, without the need for physical attributes. Some question whether the Bible intentionally left out a description of Jesus' appearance to prevent discrimination and racial debates. Had the Bible provided specific details about his skin color or features, it might have led to division. In an ancient world with diverse races and cultures, keeping Jesus' appearance a mystery may have made him more accessible and relatable to people of all backgrounds. Ultimately, the absence of an image or description of Jesus may have been a strategic choice by the Bible to make him a divine figure beyond racial and cultural boundaries. This explains why Jesus is loved and revered not only in Christianity but also in Islam and other faiths. The lack of specificity regarding his appearance allows the image of Jesus to adapt and remain alive in various cultures, from Africa to Europe and Asia. With around 31% of the world's population identifying as Christian, according to Pew Research Center, it is no surprise that Jesus is depicted differently across cultures. Yet, the Bible's silence on his appearance is unique, allowing individuals to envision Jesus in their own way and maintain a profound spiritual connection. Thus, the mystery of Jesus' appearance is not merely an omission in the text, but a profound theological and philosophical decision. The Bible intends for us to see Jesus not through the eyes, but through the heart. Today, the image of a white Jesus persists, but is increasingly challenged by more diverse interpretations. Religious communities worldwide have begun to recognize the inaccuracy of this portrayal and are working to restore Jesus' image as a Middle Eastern man, someone who would have looked more like the Jewish people of his time. In an era that celebrates diversity and cultural inclusion, reimagining Jesus not only helps people feel closer to their faith, but also dismantles a cultural legacy that was created to consolidate power. Restoring the image of a true Savior for all people Reinterpreting Jesus' image to reflect a more inclusive appearance can be seen as a spiritual and cultural revolution, especially for minority communities. The traditional depiction of Jesus as a white man with brown hair and blue eyes, popularized in the West since the Renaissance, has shaped global perceptions. But considering Jesus as a Middle Eastern man with darker skin or envisioning a Black Jesus in liberation theology allows communities who felt excluded from Christian identity to see themselves in his story. The history of Christianity has seen Jesus' image change over time. From a curly-haired, dark-skinned Jesus in ancient Egyptian Coptic art to a European-looking Jesus in the works of Michelangelo and Da Vinci. This shift reflects a cultural reality. Communities often recreate divine images in ways they can connect to. As European colonial powers expanded and spread Christianity, the image of a white Jesus became dominant, permeating Africa, Asia, and the Americas, becoming a symbol linked with European culture and power. Studies indicate that in over 60% of Christian art from the 14th to the 18th centuries, Jesus is depicted with European features. This not only created a homogeneous image, but also excluded minority communities from traditional Christianity. However, when we choose to see Jesus with darker skin, we not only bring him closer to communities that have been overlooked, but also evoke the profound meaning of liberation theology, which uses a Black Jesus as a symbol of resistance. During the American Civil Rights Movement of the 1960s, theologians like James Cone argued that Jesus should be understood as standing with the oppressed. Cone suggested that depicting Jesus as Black was not just a cultural assertion, but also a political statement, emphasizing Christianity's message of justice and unconditional love. Recent polls indicate that over 40% of Black Americans view Jesus as having dark or black skin, reflecting the image's significance in their spiritual lives. Rethinking Jesus' appearance is not merely a matter of history or culture. It also helps build a more inclusive Christianity that resonates with minorities. In liberation theology and other liberation movements, the image of a Black Jesus is a symbol of strength, solidarity, and freedom, a reminder that God is not just for the privileged, but also stands with the suffering and marginalized. Accepting a diverse image of Jesus does not diminish the value of Western Christian traditions. Instead, it broadens Christianity's ability to connect with global communities. It reminds us that, beyond cultural norms, Jesus remains a symbol of love, justice, and hope for all people, regardless of skin color or background. A more diverse portrayal of Jesus will enrich the faith of millions, helping them feel accepted and represented in the great story of Christianity. The image of a Black Jesus has emerged as a powerful symbol of pride and resistance within African American communities, representing a journey from suffering to hope, from oppression to liberation. What transformed this religious figure beyond traditional beliefs into such a potent symbol? During the era of colonialism and slavery, Black people in America were stripped of their freedom and subjected to an ideology that viewed them as inferior. In this context, they were introduced to an image of a white Jesus, tied to European power and dominance, seemingly conveying a message that white people were closer to God while Black people were not. Yet, African American communities skillfully reinterpreted this to make Black Jesus a symbol of pride and defiance. A pivotal moment came in the 20th century, as the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power movement spread across America. Leaders like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and Black liberation theologians used the image of a Black Jesus to emphasize that Black people not only belonged in society, but also bore sacred worth. They argued that if Jesus stood with the oppressed in his time, he would stand with Black people in their fight for justice and freedom. Theologian James Cone, regarded as the father of Black liberation theology, asserted that Jesus not only understood Black suffering, but also stood in solidarity with them in the struggle against injustice. Supported by theology, the image of a black Jesus became a symbol of resistance both religiously and politically. Over time, the image of a black Jesus has also become a symbol of cultural and historical pride. It reflects not only a connection to a savior figure, but also challenges the notion that the most sacred icon must be white. Centuries of cultural and historical disenfranchisement made African Americans yearn for a symbol connected to their identity. Paintings, religious icons, and churches began to depict Jesus as a strong black man with African features. In a survey by the Pew Research Center, over 20% of African Americans expressed that they feel closer to an image of Jesus that is not white, an indication of a significant shift in cultural and religious perception. The image of a black Jesus serves as an affirmation of black existence and worth in a society that once oppressed them. For African Americans, it is a reminder of a Jesus who stands with the marginalized, symbolizing that their suffering and struggles are sacred. By reimagining Jesus with black skin, they not only assert their identity but also send a powerful message of solidarity and resilience. This image continues to illuminate the path toward justice and freedom, representing a Jesus who truly belongs to everyone, especially those who have, are, and will rise for righteousness. In closing, let me remind you that Jesus is the Creator, the Father of all humankind, regardless of His appearance. He loves us and is always with us. May we keep our faith, live according to God's will, and love each other as He loves us. Thank you for watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. God be with you. Please subscribe to our channel to enjoy more captivating Bible stories from us.